Thank you, Valerie, for introducing me. Hello, international people. It's really been a pleasure to join in your discussion about sign writing. And I would like to applaud Valerie for her persistence in keeping on for 20, no, 35 years it's been with sign writing. She has been very, very persistent. And she's just like an athlete, even though she might have a long beard that has been growing, just like Forrest Gump, who'd been running across the country back and forth. Valerie, where is your beard? Okay, so my presentation will be on the sign writing pilot experiment at the deaf school, and also the deaf in mainstream schools as well. And so I would like to start with talking about the idea of how people, when they first see sign writing, they're very resistant to the idea. And the issue with schools is you have to face the administrator, the principals, the teachers, the people who are involved in all of that process. You have to explain to them what's the benefit of sign writing and why they should have their deaf students use it and implement it into their program. And you have to actually sell them on that idea that sign writing will help them improve in their American Sign Language, and as a result will improve their English. And you have to basically sell them on that idea. And then once you get past that step, you have to find teachers who are actually willing to learn sign writing. Oh, but first you have to meet with the administration and all the people involved, and you have to meet with them a year or so in advance before you can actually even start asking for teachers to start learning sign writing. And you have to teach them sign writing. Most of the times that has to be during the summer, because that's when they're off and they're not teaching. And so they have to have people who are experienced with sign writing, like Adam and Valerie, to teach them during that summer, really get them used to the idea of writing by hand and writing and sign writing, and to understand the different palm orientations, and to understand the different rotations, and to understand the different planes of movement, the vertical plane and the horizontal plane. And once you get them to the point where they are able to actually start writing at a good skill, they can start applying that to the curriculum. And then the students in those classes, after they take their classes a few months, you have to meet with those teachers, get feedback from them, and get some improvements as to how to improve the curriculum, or how to what worked for some people and what worked for other people, and maybe get some input from people all around the world, and to get their input and their experience from people in Europe or South America. And that's why this symposium through Google Hangout has been such a wonderful thing, because this is the first time we've been able to get together and collaborate our experiences and our ideas together. So it's really wonderful to get that. And so, but to get the pilot programs to go in all the different education settings, you have to get grants to spend for all of that, and you have to ask money from this local government and the federal government to help set that up. And for it's just like with the symposium, you'd have to have a similar thing where to get the interpreters to provide interpretation for everyone. And so you'd have to set up a model. And once you have a model that's set up, you can more readily convince other places to start using it. And that resistance that teachers experience and the administration experience, they will be more receptive to the idea because there will be more documentation and more, there will be more evidence out there, and people will be more readily to accept that idea. And then once it becomes more and more spread throughout the system, then it can actually, from there, start to become a part of the educational curriculum. And the Department of Education, which has a Department of Special Education, you'll be able to have somebody in that department, which is called the OSR. They will be able to talk about how to include that into the curriculum. And then it will go even further to secondary education from colleges like Gallaudet or RIT, and would be able to also be used by people who are teachers, tutors, researchers, computer programmers, and they will be able to add those stories of sign languages and be able to add that into the different stories into the curriculums and to put them into the I think we have a So then we'll be able to get that all in there, and then once it's all in those departments, the rest, as they say, is history. So do you have any questions or anything about what I have talked about?
I was just muted. Can I talk?
Yeah, you can go ahead now.
Was there a problem with the sound?
For one second.
I see.
Yeah, there is a little bit of sound.
Ah, sorry. Okay, I can sign, but somebody should voice. Can you voice? Let me mute myself.
Well, we can go and have one of us be mute while the other one talks. We can go back and forth that way. That's not a problem for me, Valerie. Or do you want to just go ahead and sign for yourself? Whichever you feel most comfortable, Valerie. Denny says, I'm flexible. You can just go back and forth. That's fine with me. Valerie, we don't hear you. You need to have your...
No. Okay. Okay, I have to put it on me.
I would prefer this because my ASL is not that great.
I would prefer to speak because I know that my ASL is not that good, and Denny has a very good ASL. So I feel I need an interpreter. I feel I need an interpreter. Now, can you hear me? And is it okay? I'm asking Adam.
It's working just fine.
Okay. From my end, I don't hear it, but I can hear it now that you're having problems. Sorry. Oh, okay. So, you know, Denny, you did that very fast. And most people take about another half hour on their talk. So let me ask you questions as we go along. Perhaps that will help. Okay. The first thing is, I know that you have worked in the past in school systems. I remember in Riverside years and years ago. I think for a while you were at the Riverside School for the Deaf. Is that right? Way back when I first knew you.
Yes, I was over at the Riverside for 5 years. 5 years.
Okay. So when you were there, did you ever try to show them sign writing?
No. It wasn't approved. Curriculum. Valerie, can you mute?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
So let me give you a little bit of a background on this. Okay. I was born deaf. My parents are also deaf. And they were actually born in Europe. They were born in Austria. They got married and moved to the U.S. And I was born in California, actually near San Francisco. And there I went to an oral school where they were teaching me how to speak, and I was not allowed to sign, and I had to learn how to speak, and I just could not do it. All of those students who were deaf had hearing family, so I grew up signing, and so it just felt really bad that I was signing at home, and then all these deaf classmates were teasing me because I couldn't speak well. They would make fun of me because I sounded funny, and I just struggled with it so much. I had so much emotional frustration from that. Then when I was 9, my father put me into the Berkeley School for the Deaf in Northern California, and that was one of the best schools in the U.S. at that time. I entered the Berkeley School for the Deaf when I was 9, and it was such a life-changing experience to be able to see all the deaf teachers, had deaf supervisors, have deaf role models. And I was able to feel like I was worth something because I was deaf just like them. And so I came to the realization that I could become something like they were.
Actually, I don't think I really need to even be here for the last 2 presentations.
So
It'll make it easier.
There's no slideshows for me to show, so.
Oh. Can you clear it with Val?
So the deaf principal,
Okay.
he was named Dean Willing. He wasn't willing, happy being part of the whole experience because I also had a deaf family and so did he. So I was able to be a part of his home, go to his home and be a part of school activities. I was involved in sports, in softball, football. I was able to be a part of the junior NAD and to be a part of the class meetings, and I was able to be involved in different theaters. And so the school was a turning point in my life. It really changed, and it was just I became better in math, and my English skills up to that point was not really that great. My parents were not that great in English, but my math skills, they were always very strong. And then I didn't really get interested into reading because every time I'd come across a word, I'd have to go look it up in the dictionary, and I'd be going back and forth between reading and reading in the dictionary, and I was struggling to understand what those terms meant. And I would have to have somebody sign to me to explain to me what it meant so that I could understand my reading better and improve skills.
So can I interrupt Denny? Could you try to interrupt him? So Denny, I just want to ask you a question related to sign writing. Imagine if you had your childhood in that wonderful school for the deaf, the one that you said you liked so much. Was it the Berkeley School for the Deaf? Imagine if sign writing had existed at that time, and that there was a way to read and write American Sign Language and also Austrian Sign Language, where your parents came from. Would you have enjoyed that? Do you think that would have been beneficial to the Berkeley School for the Deaf?
Oh yes, oh yes. But
Okay, so
that's a really good question. Because I was able to have a natural development in my signing, but if I was able to have a more direct correlation with reading and writing, I would be able to develop my literacy a lot better, and then I would be able to, from there, have a linguistic acquisition of my language, because it's really important for kids to acquire language at a young age. And then my reading and writing of English in the long run would have been greatly improved. So yes, I feel that it should be in the elementary level, at the very fundamental learning of language, and then that would be able to be applied to other languages like English or French or Spanish, because they have a strong foundation in their native language, and later that foundation can be applied to learning other language. And so yes, I do feel that having it at an early age would have been a great improvement. And so that's why I do feel so strongly that children should have it at that primary level in elementary.
So I will ask one quick question once again. So Denny, now you have told us that it would have been good if you had it in your school. And I can imagine it must have been really hard to grow up not really feeling like your languages were respected as equal languages to the spoken languages around you. And I think if I had been in your position, I'd be angry. Frankly, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I would be angry because I would want to feel respected. And I think a lot of deaf people feel sort of angry at the hearing communities because they don't feel like their languages are given the proper respect. So what I'm really trying to ask you is, what do we do now? Is there a school that you would like to start approaching? I'd be more than glad to very politely start with you a way to reach whatever school you tell me. We don't have to involve you if the politics is too hard. I could always maybe just do it in a very gentle way, meet some people who are maybe hearing in the administrations, inform them a little bit about how sign writing is spreading in other countries, and maybe it's about time that the U.S. take notice. What school would you suggest? Do you have any ideas? Go ahead.
Oh, I can think of a few schools that are pretty good. There's probably about 5 that I would say that would be a good one, that would be accepted to an innovative school for an innovative idea. There's the Fremont School for the Deaf. There's the Phoenix Day School for the Deaf. There's the Indiana School for the Deaf. And then there's the Maryland School for the Deaf. And then there's the Modern Secondary School for the Deaf, which is right next door to Gallaudet University. And maybe there's another school. There's the Florida School for the Deaf would be another one. But I'm currently living in Phoenix, Arizona, so I could probably contact the Phoenix State School for the Deaf, or even the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind, which is in Tucson, which is a few hours from here, but not too far. I have a few contacts with people down there, so I would be able to. I would be more than willing to contact a few people in the administration to try and see if we can talk with them about setting, if they would be interested in just listening to the idea, and we can give them a few suggestions, and we could maybe even try to start this fall. I would be more than happy to do that, because I'm sure there would be a lot of people who'd be interested in such an innovative idea just like I am.
Well, I'm now going to put on the sound for 1 minute to myself and explain, Denny, that back in 1999, I certainly felt the frustration that you feel. And I started something called the SignWriting Literacy Project. I put it up on the computer, up online, and I invited people from all over the world to write us 2 letters, just a letter on their school stationery, saying that they would be delighted to get donated SignWriting books from me, and in return they understand that they don't have to give us any money, so it's all for free, but that we would like to know how that it goes, that they would be willing to share their feedback with us, and that we would have permission to post the feedback online, up on the computer, so that if they were willing to share with us, we would be giving them the materials. Well, it was very popular. You'd be surprised. We had a real project for 5 years in the New Mexico area. It was not the New Mexico School for the Deaf. That would have been really cool. But it was in Albuquerque, but it was in the Albuquerque public schools. They had a mainstreaming school, but they were special classes for deaf students. And there's a Dr. Cecilia Flood, got her PhD. Her dissertation was written studying a classroom of deaf students learning SignWriting for 5 years at a school for the deaf in Albuquerque, or a school for hearing people, but it was mainstreamed with deaf students, excuse me. And they were elementary school, and the teachers were wonderful, and you're right, the teachers had to learn it. That was one of the biggest issues. But I'm going to tell you the real issue. I was really surprised when here I had donated all this material, yeah, but that the teachers weren't allowed to use SignWriting very much anyway, because even though the school had sent me the letter saying that they wanted me to use it and it was okay and they would accept the materials, they were afraid of the parents who felt scared that their children wouldn't learn English if they were to learn how to read and write sign language, and they were under pressure by the parents, the administrators of the school. And also, it was more than just donating materials. They needed real funding in the school. If they didn't have money to pay the teachers to do it, they didn't have time to have the teachers work on it for free. So after 5 years, the project went away. And it was an amazing project with beautiful deaf children learning, and then the project just stopped. And most of the teachers stopped teaching completely. The whole story is surprising, isn't it? I'm going to get your feedback now. I'm going to put the picture on you, and I'm going to turn my mute button on. So please tell me what you think.
That's very unfortunate to have that happen in the Albuquerque in New Mexico. Sorry, I'm going to need the 5 years is really just a short time to really get all of that. To really get the real true benefit, you have to have at least 10 years just to start. I mean, they need to have a commitment of 10 years to include SignWriting within that. And then they would be able to see the long-term effect of it, because 5 years is just too short still. And then once the students graduate and they go out into the world, is their writing skills better? Do they have better English skills? I mean, just 1 year or 2 years, just a few years does not give you that validation of, oh, that worked or not, because it's not in the long term. It needs to be in that long term to be able to see the result. So you'd have to find a school who's willing to have that long-term commitment to having that sort of program. And they can't enter in it with a half-hearted feeling of just doing it. They have to be wholeheartedly invested into giving all the time and resources. And yes, it is very time-consuming and even financial straining, but they need to have that full commitment from not only the administration, but also from the teachers and even the parents. That full collaboration between the administration, the parents, and the teachers to be able to have SignWriting involved and to have it be successful. If you don't have one of those three, you won't have a successful result no matter what you do.
So, well, gosh, Denny, I want to thank you very much for sharing our frustrations together. Isn't that silly? I mean, really, we do have a bright future. And I do think the real truth is that we need a real research project that really gets funded with a large sum of money, so that the schools aren't just simply getting donated materials from a small nonprofit organization like mine, but instead really have funding, be able to pay for the teachers and to get focus on the children, as you just said, for a decade. You're absolutely right about that. So instead, what has happened until that happens is that people are using SignWriting because they love it. They find it up on the internet. A lot of deaf kids, when they're, not at school, they do start using SignWriting, and we do actually have lots of individual people using SignWriting around the country. I think you would be surprised to know how many people are using SignWriting as older people. It's just really the children that is the issue, and whether the schools will ever be able to take it as an administrative responsibility, I don't know. I do think also the cochlear implant and other issues that parents are concerned about have also confused the issue, don't you think? I'll let you talk now.
Oh, yeah. We have a huge challenge with new technologies coming up, making things better, like the cochlear implant. And then there's even been research on DNA, and they discovered, oh, there's a cure for the deaf gene, and they've discovered the deaf gene, and so they will be able to cure deafness. And oh, then they find the gene for blindness, and they can cure blindness. And so you have the eugenic approach to it. And so you have a lot of deaf people who will eventually be put in right next to the dinosaur museum and have a wax statue of them saying, "I love you," right next to the dinosaurs. But that's a technological impact on deaf people's lives. It used to be there was no telephones, there were no pagers. You had to run to your neighbor's house when you had an emergency so that they could contact the fire department. You had to write to them, ask them to help you. Now we were able to finally then get the TTYs, and we could contact people that way. And then we had pagers, and now we have idiophones, and where people can be self-reliant. And they don't need to be dependent on other people. And so that's another aspect of how the technological improvements in life have been able to improve deaf people's lives. And so I think when SignWriting also is able to catch up with all of that technological aspect too, and where we can have SignWriting in softwares and use it into iPad and stuff. And a lot of people would be like, well, I can't really use SignWriting because it's just so hard to use it on the computer, and I have to write it by hand. And then once it starts getting to where you can use it in computers, they thought, oh, that will lose your handwriting, and so then they developed computer programming and be able to fit the system to that, and then the PCs and then the Mac computers become better and more small and become more user friendly, and you can write in such that way, and in that way becoming update just by that alone is very costly, and you just have to use all the technological aspects around. But once you get involved in that, then it will impact everybody's daily life, and hopefully for the better.
I had to smile. That was fun. I think it's wonderful to talk to you, Denny. I love hearing your discussion of deaf life, really. That's a wonderful description of all the technology and how it's both hurting and helping the deaf community. But on the good side of things, I think that the new technologies are wonderful, because I remember the TTY, and as a hearing person, I was so new to communicating with deaf people way back in the 1980s and 90s, and I remember getting my first TTY, and it was really hard to communicate on that. So I think it's better now. I really do, and I do like signing with you on FaceTime, on your iPad. So that's kind of cool. It's a little bit like video phones, but it's on our phones. I mean, it's amazing. Now, SignWriting actually is coming to those pieces of equipment. Steve Slavinsky and others are working on the software, and there are other people too. We're all working towards those goals. So some people do nothing but computer use of SignWriting, and they all assume that nobody could write by hand. And then there are other people who don't use computers at all, and they only write by hand. So SignWriting is very practical. It is. And I think that you should just keep working and not worry. And I appreciate your help. Yes, what do you want to say? I'm going to put you back on.
He was just saying that I froze up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. It's better now? Okay. Well, listen, our next presenter doesn't come for 15 minutes. We're a little bit early. I'm not quite sure why. Her name is Elena, and I'm sure you would love to see her presentation too. She's a charming young lady. But she isn't here yet unless you'd like to come early. Yoo-hoo, Elena, you're welcome to come early. But Denny, I want people to know that you are up on our website. If you go to the DAC, do you remember your interview with the Saudi Arabian friend who's deaf and who, of course, uses sign language from Saudi Arabia, Abdul Al-Abaid, and I want to say hello to him, Abdul Aziz Al-Abaid, I believe. Yes, please say hello to him if you see him sometime. And I really appreciated it. Denny did an interview. Oh, okay. Are you going to say goodbye now, Denny? Is that what or did you want to say something? Yes.
So, Abdul, what is he doing today? He's working in the embassy. And he just contacted me, and he just got married a few weeks ago. I found out he had met a woman in Saudi Arabia and brought her over to America, and they were able to settle in the U.S., and the two of them got married. So I will tell him hi for you, that you say hi. I would tell him.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for him. He got married. Wow. Go ahead, honey. I'll put you on here. You want to say something? You want to say goodbye, Denny, and we'll talk to you later?
Well, I just wanted to say, when I met Sarah about the sound.
Yeah, the sound. Okay, one second. I know. 1 second. I got to figure it out. Oh,
When I first met Valerie over at Lucinda O'Brady Batcher's wedding, my first reaction to SignWriting when she showed me, I said, "This looks like it's Chinese characters. Why are you trying to show me Chinese?" But then I tried to keep an open mind, and I went and visited you at your home, and I honestly was resistant to the idea. But then once you started teaching the basics of SignWriting and how the different rotations and everything for different hands and everything, and then we started inputting that into a dictionary each sign, and I remember it took like 5 minutes just for one sign. But after a while, it just really sold me on the idea of writing in SignWriting, to be able to write sign language, and I just wanted to get that idea out to the world, and as they say, the rest is history.
thank you, Denny. This is wonderful. I feel like it's old times, back in the 1990s when we used to chat. And yeah, Denny was very, very enthusiastic about writing his language, and I'm grateful to you for what you did for us. You worked on a dictionary. You started putting in signs into a dictionary, and then you did interviews with deaf people and videos with us. And even back then, I remember you were hoping for a pilot project. I even have an old video of you telling us about that around 1995, sitting in my old living room. Yeah. So maybe later I'll try to find that old video and I can put it up online. No matter what, thank you, Denny. Thank you for coming today. It's a pleasure. And I look forward to receiving more writing from you. I'll put it up onto your webpage. Denny's webpage is number 29, presentation 29. And we'll see more of you, honey. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to talk with you. Bye. Valerie, your sound's not on.
Do you want it on? Okay. Is it okay? Well, you're a IT tech also. You're not just an interpreter. Adam is helping me with everything. So there was some kind